Good morning. I'm Robert Tulalian, I work for Shell, and for today's presentations, I would like to focus on operationalizing IT-OT convergence to drive our asset operations towards autonomous. So a little bit of disclaimer here as a reminder not to make any investment decisions, whatever you hear in this presentation. So I'm not going to quiz you later on this. So okay, so I listening to Kip's presentations. Really, we found out, discovered that they're not too distant. Dow and Shell are not too distant in achieving our aspirations in our assets. So, but in today's presentation, I'd like to take on the answer to what and how and why are we doing this? Does it add value? And also, what are the key drivers in achieving our goals? What are our end goals? What is our transformation journey? So, our drivers is really, the needs for multiple data integrations in multiple assets and in multiple lines of businesses. And our goal, just like our leaders in a keynote speaker, we want to achieve a green planet, which aims at zero carbon footprints goals and zero waste in our plant. Our end goals in IT-OT convergence is really to have a control room anywhere, which is an operator will have access to a real-time data and at the same time the ability to control the operations anywhere around the world, which means that a systems will have an autonomous operations that will have minimum or zero human interventions in our assets as needed. This is needed in our transformation journey, which we would like to operationalize our IT-OT convergence and enable the technologies, latest and greatest technologies in the market today. Why is it critical? First of all, we all know that we want to increase our safety in our assets. By doing autonomous and remote operations, our people will be, we only set a people which is only needed, as I mentioned, but most of all, we remove all the people from the hazardous work locations. By doing so, our digitalization will increase our performance, it closes our performance gaps, and we are achieving our goals of asset of the future with green plant and zero waste, zero carbon footprints. And as you heard our leaders mention in our keynote speaker, we want to do this by 2050. And how do we do that? We already have our asset monitoring, our assets everywhere. We want to have the automated risk analysis, and by doing so, we will remotely control our assets from anywhere using our latest and greatest AI and machine learning technologies. So where are we today in that journey? But first, I'd like to understand what is the current industry practices so that we can also understand where we're heading. Industry practices, as of today, we're following the Purdue model for industrial control systems. Our ICS, cybersecurity, is based on a ISA IEC 62443, which is practices following the Purdue model, as I mentioned. And IT/OT layers are segregated on a DMZ with firewall communications. In Shell, we call it the Process Control Access Domain, or a DMC in Purdue Mall. But first, let's also take a closer look and compare what are the priorities of OT and IT. In OT, the process safety is our top priority. Whereas in IT, it has, as you can see, the confidentiality and protecting our business data is the top priorities. So striking the balance between IT and OT priorities will help us understand where we're heading and what are the types of strategies that we can put together to achieve both worlds. So let's take a closer look while the journey to autonomous will be achieved. Currently, we have majority of our assets have remote monitoring somewhere in all our hubs. One in New Orleans, in Bangalore, and all our sites that are having or are remotely monitoring their assets. But the goal is really to move from monitoring to control room anywhere, whereas the operator, as I mentioned, will reduce will increase the safety of our assets, remove our people from the hazardous working area, and remotely control our assets towards greater asset performance. To do that, we have to examine our automation systems, the control strategies, and assess what are the right level of automations needed to achieve that goal. We have launched this right level of automations assessment that helps our assets achieve their aspirations towards autonomous operations. So we will be doing a lot of assessments from our assets and then present that to the asset owners and put together a roadmap to achieve that asset operations. So we'll look at the people, the process, and the technology to achieve that ambitions. So let's take a look at the first steps, which is remote monitoring center. Most of our assets, as I mentioned, have already done this remote monitoring center. That gives us really this enables us to make our operation safe and leverage all the technology and digitize it, put it into a center, and then right now what we're doing is a proof of concept enablers are robotic to perform surveillance, anomaly detections, and predictive models. We send our robots to do inspections, to do all the non-accessible places where humans are unable or hazardous to do so. Our next step is the control room anywhere. While we're already benefiting from the remote monitoring, we will enable our control room anywhere from offsite. We will identify all those manual tasks, we automate it, and then at the same time, we operationalize those robotic surveillance. As I mentioned, we've had this right level of automation assessment. We will evaluate, the goal is to evaluate those instrumentations, all the control strategies, and automate those critical tasks. This will enable our operators to perform their duties off-site. And the goal is really to have an active collaborations between the on-site and off-site personnel. While we deploy this, what we call the eyes and ears, we have also this, what we call the sense of smell that will come out later in our remote operations. I think from our senior leaders, the next step is really to bring those smell the sense of smell in our remote operations. So watch out for that too. Really, the key task here is to automate using the procedural automations. Now, the last step is the autonomous operations. Now that we can control anywhere around the world our operations, the next step is really to make it run by itself, which is the autonomous operations. And to do that, we are going to put together all this latest and greatest technology, machine learning, AI, mainly to perform end-to-end optimizations, anomaly management, and this will be led by operations offsite. And of course, as I mentioned, we only send people when it's required to do so. So, moving on. Of course, to do that, we have a lot of, I mentioned earlier that we will have a lot of data integrations, digitalizations. We will modify the Purdue model. We will have a lot of sensor proliferations, and we will deploy this, what we call the unified engineering environment. This environment will help us achieve our goal from concept stage. As you know, our projects are the one who build our assets. We make that assets autonomous at day one. That's the goal. But to do that, we need to have a high-fidelity digital twin that will enable, from the project stage or concept stage, science stage, our process modeling. We will know, we will already know that we're going to build what will be the future project, and we will predict the outcome of our operations. To do that, we have to have the asset digital twins. And operator cockpit, by the way, is we're trying to put together all this information into a one single pane, just like the pilot in our airplane. He has all the controls in place to run the airplane. Similar concept. The operator cockpit will have, the operator will have all its tools and all its user-machine interface, a advisory, a simulators that will help the operator operates into optimum performance of the asset. I mentioned to do that, we have to have a combined edge computer and modified our Purdue model to achieve that goal. So let's take a closer look of what are the digital versus autonomous needs in terms of data integrations. We heard about the cloud, we heard about the edge, but what does it really do to achieve our autonomous requirements? Basically, the intersections of the cloud and edge will help us understand what are the needs in terms of the cloud and edge. In the edge, we run all our real-time data, and all the decision makings and controls are done at the edge. Whereas at the cloud, we have all the models, we have all the analytics that feeds all our asset informations into that edge to make that control or our actions, we call it, enable those actions into our field. Now let's take a closer look at the asset performance. Pervasive sensing enables automated data collection. So we have on IoT sensors on all our assets. This data goes to our digital twins mainly to enable the artificial intelligence, machine learning, and which will be enable also our procedural operations. This will contribute to our edge computing to enable the automated actions mainly for predictive maintenance. Now let's take a closer look on a use cases. We have our robotics deployed at the sites for mainly system detections or inspections. We have in this example, we have a pump that is detecting an anomalous vibration in the pump. The data will be driven to process dynamic simulator and asset performance management instead of our traditional DCSs. Automated analysis of data will be triggering potential actions, and our asset performance management will automatically create a work notifications. And automatic analysis will be done by the digital twin, and then may indicate some process issue. For example, the flow is too high or too low. Then it triggered some actions. Then the robotic surveillance and machine vision will be deployed to analyze further the issue. This is one of the examples that we're looking at. How are we going to put together those processes, work together with the data, what the data we need, and also trigger that autonomously. But how do we really operationalize the IT-OT convergence with the end goal of autonomous operations? We have what we call the three sets of our puzzles, which is asset operations, industry solutions, and capital projects. All of this is glued together by a robust program and governance structure. So our end goal is really to put this all together into a one cohesive or holistic approach in achieving our autonomous operations. Now, so let's take a closer look what the asset operations looks like. Right now, discrete assets, or mostly our brownfield assets, are navigating opportunities with no clear end-to-end visions or sometimes a framework. Working to embed the IT-OT capabilities into asset management, it requires mapping the processes in the asset management systems and match that together with the emerging IT-OT capabilities. And as I mentioned, we've done our right level of assessments, and we track this all the time so that we can achieve that end goals. Really, the key points is to leverage system optimizations to move focus from unit operations to autonomous operations. Janet is signaling that, hey! Okay, so industry solutions. We can't do this without the industry solutions, really. The key here is to leverage open process automations and industry standards such as IOGP, really to create a unified systems that are upgradable and provide a transparent, open, and data access. Capital projects is a driving force behind these IT-OT capabilities, but it requires a IT-OT industry standard to embed it from the concept stage. The key here is to leverage the capital projects to showcase our capability and visions of IT-OT integrations and autonomous operations at day one and at the concept stage. As I've mentioned, the keystones here is the program and governance that guides all these three pieces of IT-OT convergence puzzle can be glued together and have a holistic approach in achieving our autonomous operations and vision. We have to have set up a governance to ensure each sections will run smoothly. We mitigate risk and accelerate the opportunities as they come. To do this, we have to have an agile operating model to address issues and opportunities early. And to understand each and every processes, we need to really provide a documentation and guidance for groups to understand the visions end-to-end and the framework to execute the IT-OT convergence. Key here is to leverage the proliferation of OT data seamlessly, securely, mainly to improve safety, operational excellence, and capital efficiencies. In summary, in path forwards, we need to have internal alignment. We'll need to derive from the established independent programs and governance. Integrating data into single source of truth will clear the path to regulatory compliance and accelerate energy transitions, which means that whenever you pull the data, it's there for you at the right time and the right data quality. Also, optimizing the system will move focus from unit operations to autonomous operations. Integrating autonomous operations within our project delivery framework will further improve scoping, executions, commissioning and startup, and a lower project risk. IT-OT convergence will empower asset operations to accelerate asset of the future. So let's keep on powering the progress and help us achieve that goal. Thank you.